Thank you all. I am Laura Belden, Chair of the Asian American Chamber of Commerce. AACC is designed to help local businesses to thrive in the community. And we want to thank you all for joining today's event. And I want to thank all of you, especially the board members, committees, committee members, and speakers to make this event happen. Definitely our sponsors too. And thank you all for joining this event. And I'm looking forward to Future of Work Part 3, Work Mental Health. And I hope you all enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us. Cindy Shao here. I'm the president of the Asian American Chamber of Commerce. We're excited to host this part 3 of the Future of Work webinar series. Really want to thank our wonderful moderator and the speaker, Balaji and Siri, for your wonderful presentation in past 2 events. And so look forward to today's discussion. I know it's a really hot topic right now, and many people and the businesses are facing this challenge. So look forward to the in-depth discussion. I want to just take 1 minute to share information about our chamber membership. If you are not a member, we love to invite you to consider and be a part of the chamber. This is our wonderful members here. Hope you are one of them. And I'd love to take this opportunity to thank our awesome sponsors. Without their generous support, we couldn't have offered this event and programs. Next, let's actually welcome the co-host and our sponsor, National ACE, and please, Janet Alekpara, can you just say some welcoming remarks? Janet is the Program and Business Development Director at the National ACE. We have been so lucky to have chance to collaborate a lot in the past and also lately. Janet, please.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Cindy. It's just always an honor to be here for the webinar today. Again, I'm Janet Alekpala. I am the Program and Business Development Director for the National Asian Pacific Islander American Chamber of Commerce and Entrepreneurship, known as National ACE, and we're headquartered in Washington, D.C. I want to take a quick moment to thank our chamber partner, Asian American Chamber of Commerce, and our counterparts, President Cindy Shao and Board Chair Laura Belden, and fellow board members on this call for being a source of support for AAPI business communities in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. Just to share a little bit about National ACE, we represent the interests of over 2 million AAPI small business owners and entrepreneurs. We assist AAPI businesses, and we also collaborate with close to 100 affiliate minority chambers and partner organizations across the country. In response to current issues in the AAPI business community, such as mental health, we established AAPI Strong, a virtual technical assistance program that assists small businesses with either access to capital or capacity building or programs like this today. This program delivers training for AAPI businesses to react and report promptly in crisis situations. We also conduct regional and national surveys to assist or to assess the consequences of prejudice, bias on our minority businesses. And we organize monthly roundtable discussions with government leaders, lawmakers, corporate executives, and small business leaders like yourselves to discuss ways that we can create sustainable solutions and bring it all the way up to the Hill or to the White House. Last year, we provided over 16,000 small businesses with virtual trainings and webinars across the country, as well as distributing over $2 million in grants to AAPI-owned small businesses. This funding obviously is very critical right now in giving back a lifeline to our small businesses during these difficult economic times. In 2022, we anticipate the growth of our AAPI Strong initiative to service so many more small businesses across the country, but our success cannot be based on our efforts alone. We urge everyone in the business community to be an ally, to stay up to date on policies, and spread information through your connections to ensure that our business community's well-being is a priority for policymakers and other community advocates. Stay in touch with National ACE by checking out our website at nationalace.org. I will put it in the chat, or you can also look at our initiative, aapistrong.com. Thank you so much again, Cindy and Laura. We hope you learned from today's presentation on workplace mental health and from speakers Serene and Balaji. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Janet. Thank you for all this wonderful work. And it's been just a wonderful journey. We just see amazing work National ACE has been doing in past several years, supporting all this Asian American business throughout the country. Thank you so much. Next, Balaji, we can pass the baton to you and really appreciate your support. Balaji is a business owner himself, entrepreneur. So when we plan the events, the speaker would express wish to have a business owner to moderate the session because they have firsthand experience with the business community. So we're fortunate to have Balaji, and he has been supporting this whole series from part 1 to today's part 3. Balaji, thank you so much. Now, Michael, to you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And I know everybody has a busy schedule, so you've taken 1 hour of your time during the day to join this call, and we will try hard to make it worthwhile. Before I start, for those who do not know me, my name is Balaji Venkatasan, founder and CEO of SD Solutions. We are a Virginia-based organization focused on federal contracting since 2011. And I am in the DC metro area for almost 24, 25 years, dealing with federal contracts. And, we work with more than a dozen US federal agencies, civilian and defense, in many competencies. It's a pleasure to be part of this organization. And the topic today we have is very important for all of us, both not just in the workplace, but also in your personal life as well, the mental health. And I wanted to thank and introduce Serene before we start the conversation. Special thanks to Serene. I don't know if you know where she is right now. The time is 1 a.m. midnight, right? So I appreciate her taking the time to join us and give us her thoughts and insights and knowledge and expertise on this topic. Serene, do you want to introduce yourself quickly, and then we can jump right into the discussion?
Sure. Thank you so much for your kind introduction, Balaji, and really thanks for moderating this entire whole series of talks. My name is Serene, as Balaji has mentioned, and well, I think I have a very appropriate name for a mental health advocate. I've been doing the work of workplace health with companies for the last 16 years this year. So my background is I'm a clinical exercise physiologist. I'm also a professional coach, certified with the International Coaching Federation, and I have a master's in nutrition. I got started in this, a little bit of a happenstance. I am a certified workplace health consultant here in Singapore. And initially we started with physical health, with a background in exercise and nutrition. And eventually I realized that the bigger problem is mental health. And over the last 2 years, I believe that has become probably the number one, in my own opinion, the number one problem. And that's what we're talking about today. And I work a lot with HR. I've been in HR for 25 years now. And that's the main bulk of my work. Consulting with HR in companies, big and small, around the world.
Thank you, Serene. So one thing I want to make sure is it's not just two people talking and just stuff you are listening. We want to make it as interactive and as impromptu as possible, because honestly, we haven't even prepared, or we didn't have like a prep call or whatever for this. It's more on the topics. There are so many questions to discuss, topics to address. So feel free to come up with any questions, comments, suggestions on the chat window, and we will monitor those and bring that into the conversation. So, starting point, I want to say, Serene, if you exclude the time that people sleep, at least 1/3, if not half of your adult life is consumed by your work, right? And that means the energy that you get from work, whether it's positive, negative energy, it affects so much as an individual. Sometimes it kind of also spills into your personal life, the kind of stress that you take at your work, right? What is the science saying about this? What's the background? Can we talk a little bit about the workplace mental health as a baseline, and then we go from there?
Sure. So there is a very simple framework around workplace mental health, and it's actually based off of physical safety. I think all of us have know a little bit of OSHA, occupational safety and health, and now we are trying to move that into psychological safety and health in terms of a framework, literally in terms of how are we helping people to be able to stay mentally healthy and to ensure that their work doesn't affect them in that aspect. And when we talk about mental health, we are really talking about 5 aspects. If you ask World Health Organization, the definition is very simple. It's really about being happy, being contented with your life, and feeling as though you are able to cope with it and able to get what you need done daily in a healthy and stable manner. If you want to look at it in a little bit of a breakdown, we have emotional intelligence, social intelligence, the ability to relate with people, resilience, to bounce back from setbacks, self-esteem, how we look at ourselves, and finally, cognitive efficacy, which is really about problem solving, decision making, focus, as well as memory.
Okay, wonderful. So why is mental health important? Especially we hear about mental health the last few years. I believe the pandemic as a contributing factor to it.
Yes.
Why is mental health and stress and all that becoming more and more important topic to discuss? I mean, I'm pretty sure we've all been dealing with this kind of issues, stress all along, but the attention that this topic is getting recently, the importance of it that everybody talks about is actually increasing by the day, which actually is a good thing in my opinion. But can you talk about why this is important? There are so many other issues to talk about.
Yes. Well, since COVID has happened, this has become prevalent. So what do I mean by prevalent? In 2020, the stats were basically that something like 2/3 of all workers, and this is a 17-country survey, were feeling as though they were under emotional stress, they were exhausted, they were anxious, and 14% actually report that they were so stressed that they were unable to function. And I wanted to find something a little bit more recent. So I've actually found I'm not able to share, just give me a moment. I've actually found a statistic this is the latest that we have now for the American public. There it goes. Okay, and if you look at it, in 2 years, it hasn't. If anything, it has actually gotten worse. So when COVID hit, and the entire world, 54% of the world was under lockdown. It was about 2/3 of us. Now it's 3/4. This has just been released at the end of last year. And 3/4 of those that they have surveyed say that they are experiencing at least one symptom of a mental health condition. 56% are burned out, 46% are depressed, 40% are anxious, and basically 84% have come back to say that it's the workplace that is causing this problem with them. And that is a really high percentage of people coming back to say that, hey, this isn't working for us. Now, there hasn't been a follow-up survey to see how many percent is now no longer able to work. But as we talked about 2 months ago, in this series, we talked about the Great Resignation. And if you look at the statistic, 50% are talking about leaving their workplace because of mental health. 50% feel that they are unable to, continue their work simply because of their mental health. And what we are seeing, which is quite interesting, is we are seeing a two-tail. One end is the Gen Zs and the younger millennials having really high, resignation levels, job hopping levels. The other end are those that are in their 50s, nearing retirement, showing the same signs. What we are not seeing is people from 35 to 45, I guess, with a lot of family burdens and so forth, resigning in large numbers. But at both ends, we are seeing that. So for organizations, what does that mean? It means you're losing your most experienced people, your top managers, and at the same time, you're losing the fresh blood, the young blood that comes in to continue your expanding and growing and innovating your company. So those are all things that we're looking at. And for a more, I guess, for a closer pinch on the pocket, if you look on this side, productivity losses, 72%. And so workers are working at 72% of their full capacity. What does it mean to lose 28% of the capacity of all your workers, 28% of all the productivity of your people across the year, across every single person? What does that actually mean? So that's the reason why, this is an important topic.
Wonderful. So I would like to bring up one anecdotal point about this mental health. We've been conducting in our organization a monthly, like a training or a brown bag series, and helping folks with topics on cybersecurity or program management, project management, certifications, and all that. And we recently held a company-wide meeting on mental health, and actually the topic was about sleep and mental health. Guess what? The most number of attendees of all these sessions were for the mental health and sleep topic, not for cybersecurity or not for project management, anything. So people are now actually taking it seriously. You touched upon some of these items, Serene, in the beginning of the call. Can we talk a little bit more in detail about some of the effects or some of the components of the stress or the health issues that we are experiencing? You mentioned emotional intelligence, you mentioned a lot of different things. So can we talk a little bit in detail about those? How do we kind of identify those? And how are some of the coping mechanisms, things of that nature?
Actually, at this point, I would actually like to let the audience can participate a little bit. And I want to ask you a series of questions, and I want you to really think about it, right? So when we look at mental health, we look at all the different aspects of it. So let's talk a little bit about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize and manage your own emotions. Now, in the last 1 month alone, how many of you have had the experience of feeling as though you're emotionally out of control? Okay, I don't need you to confess all your sins to me, but share a little bit about how it feels, right? Do you feel that you are less able to control, say, compared to before the pandemic? Do you find that this period of time you are having stresses with it? Think a little bit about what is the level of your emotional management. And the reason I'm asking this is because we have just started a new year. And for many, many companies, this means a new work cycle. And this year, a lot of people are hoping to get back into the groove, get back into productivity after what has happened the last 2 years. And there's been a lot of pressure just in the last 2 months alone. So how many people are starting to feel it? How many of you are starting to feel as though I can't? I'm losing my temper a lot more. I am anxious. I'm unable to sleep. I'm having. You're talking about and a doctor, right? I'm having reports of really unusual behavior. Now, I won't name names, but a VP of a very large organization, a well-known conglomerate. decided one day to basically take her umbrella and go around hitting her staff completely silently. So she just walked out of her office with her umbrella and she started hitting her staff without making a word, without saying a word, until security took her off the premise. And then she came back to work the next day as though nothing has happened. And that had happened enough times that the company had to step in and actually strongly recommend that she see somebody. Okay, so the last follow-up I've had, she is seeing someone. But what caused somebody who is, by all means, well-established, highly functional manager, with years of experience under the belt, to suddenly flip out? And a lot of it is people not realizing the signs beforehand, which is why I'm asking you this question. Right? How many of you feel that you're not able to manage your emotions as well as you did before? Or in the last month, you have had at least 2 or 3 days where you have lost control of your emotions. And those are warning signs. And that is something that we need to be aware of before. And that's just one of the aspects. Balaji, do you want me to go through all 5, or do you want to talk
No,
a
I
little?
think, if there are any inputs from the audience, let's see if anybody has. Yeah, Paul,
It's
please
Paul.
go ahead.
I apologize that I can't put on the video. I had no idea that this webinar was going to appear. It's a beautiful subject, actually, and I thank everyone for being on this. This is fantastic. And Serene, touche on your name. Really, it does go very well with this subject. I think, just speaking of me personally as a business person, I think that sleep, I remember my mom used to tell me that sleep is so important. And you don't think so much when you're young because you could bounce back. But I think the older that I'm getting, I see that sleep is paramount to good health. In fact, so much that I don't know if any of you watched the Winter Olympics, but Eileen Gu, the gold medalist, the Chinese American skier that was skiing for China. Her mom, they interviewed her mom, and the mother mentioned, what was it about your daughter? Because she was a skier too, right? Her mother. She said, what was it about her, your daughter's training that you held so important to her? And her mother said, before anything, I always allowed Eileen to sleep anywhere from about 10 to 12, sometimes even 15 hours a day. Not to say that we're going to be lazy and sleep the rest of our lives, but at a young age, a sport that requires so much energy, right? Her mom knew, and plus from her experience, right? She knew that her daughter had to get enough sleep. So this poses a question. Here in America, where we see a lot of young minds, America is known for these, high school shootings, and a lot of the schools that they have these shootings, young ones, can it be that a young age that young ones aren't getting enough sleep, aren't getting enough attention? Because if how the brain works, that front lobe isn't developed until the age of 25, where you could make sound decision. And on top of that, you add the stressful lives of parents or single family parents. So I think, this is a fabulous subject to talk about, and adults that are experiencing this have to, sometimes put it in pause and really see, what is it about my life right now that is contributing to this? Because if we think that we're going to be like engines that are keeping on going, and we haven't, confronted some of the issues in our lives, I think that's where the breaking point comes in.
Yes, thank you very much, Paul. I completely agree with you. I had a whole series of different people reach out to me at or near to burnout. And one of the things that consistently came back from all of them was, I had a good night's rest. And suddenly I feel so much better. I feel as though I am able to deal with the things in my life so much better. So yes, I agree with you. If you are not getting a minimum of 6 hours, at least five to 6 hours of good quality sleep throughout the night, then that is something to really look at. So later on, I'll be sharing with you a checklist for burnout recovery. And one of the top items on that list is exactly that, is sleep. Unfortunately, one of the things I will say though, is when we are in that state, when we've wound ourselves up, a lot of us are unable to sleep due to the anxiety and the stress that we are facing. So either we go to bed and we stay awake, or we could sleep and then wake up throughout the night from nightmares, sometimes just simply from the tension in the body. So that's something to look at. I don't have the stats off my top of my mind, but I believe just from my own clinical experience that about 1/3 to 1/2 of adults have some kind of sleep disturbance, insomnia, or just irregular sleep patterns. Well, I can't say much because it's 1 a.m. and I'm here giving a speech, right, for my work. But I do have to say this though, which is if you don't have that, and you do have a problem with sleep, I'm happy to share some tips that you can consider in terms of sleep management.
Okay, thank you. Serene, do you want to just dive into those 5 items that you were talking about just a little bit detail? Sure.
The second one is social intelligence, and that really is about your support network. I think all of us know by now, right? None of us will be able to survive very stressful times alone. And the more socially isolated that we are, the worse it becomes. Now, this is really exacerbated by the pandemic because we are all working from home. And even before the pandemic, all the stats have shown that people who telecommute or who work from home often are much more socially isolated than those who go to the office. So at a time when we are much more stressed out and we then are isolated, that becomes a huge issue. And I would ask you this to think about the last 1 week, right? The last 1 week, how much time have you spent in your social networks, spending time with family, spending time with colleagues? I mean, spending time with colleagues, not doing work. Okay, so just like catching up with a colleague, spending time with your friends. How much time have you really spent? And think about the quality of those interactions. Not just, hey, have you brought the groceries? Hey, have you done your homework? But really connecting with those around you. And if that number comes up to less than 10, I will strongly encourage you to relook at your schedule and see where you can reallocate your time to do this a little better. Because 10 hours is an hour or an hour and a half a day, and that's barely enough time for us to feed our social support network to survive this. And obviously that ties into resilience. We have 3 very big components of resilience. This social support network is one big component of resilience. The second component is our frame of mind. You can call it mindset, but literally it's how do we look at the circumstances and the events that happen in our lives. Very, very broadly speaking, people can be divided into optimist and pessimist. Okay, so pessimists tend to be people who feel that there will be an end, a poor outcome to whatever that happens. Optimists, the opposite. And we've found actually that optimists, or to be more precise, realistic optimists, are the ones that are the most equipped to be resilient in the difficult circumstances. What does that mean to be optimistic, realistic optimist? It means literally that we believe that there will be a good outcome, but we stay in touch with the difficult circumstances that we are going through. But we ultimately have faith that we have the resources, that we would ultimately be able to overcome this, to get out to the other side and so on. Now, if your frame of mind about life is very different from that, then this is a good time to rethink what would be helpful for you, going forward in your life, whether that might be something you want to rethink, because that then makes it easier for us to cope with difficult circumstances. And the third one is our actual executive skills, right? So time management, task prioritization, the ability to, finish what we've started, all of these simple skills of life. That's the third part that supports us when we are in very difficult circumstances. So three things, right? Your social support network, your frame of reference, the way that you look at life, and the skills that you have to deal with the business of life. And having that allows us then to have a good self-esteem. There's a lot of confusion about self-esteem. So I'm going to introduce a couple of words to you. I hope not like totally confusing you, but self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence, and self-image. Self-image is literally, what do you think you are? Who do you think you are? So if I ask you, for instance, who's Balaji? Who is Cindy? Who are you? What is your honest opinion of yourself? Now, if you think well of yourself, this is what we call self-esteem. This is, we respect ourselves. Esteem means respect. We have self-respect, we esteem ourselves. Now, that can be different from self-worth. Self-worth is whether we believe that we are worthy as a human being to receive love, and to be alive, to receive love. And this is slightly different. So self-respect, self-esteem is the respect that we give ourselves. Self-worth is whether I believe I'm worthy of love, respect from others. And finally, self-confidence. Self-confidence, quite simply, is whether we feel we are able to do a certain task, and it is very task-oriented. Now, we often talk about self-esteem out of all of these different things, because I may not be self-confident. For instance, in cybersecurity, which Balaji is very good at, Balaji may not be very confident in psychological counseling, but that does not take away from our self-esteem. Self-esteem means, do we respect ourselves at the end of the day? And that is something that we ultimately can only answer for ourselves. And without that, that makes it impossible for us to essentially function and do well in life. And the last one is a whole series of different skills. We call this cognitive efficacy, but it's skills in problem solving, decision making, memory, and focus. And we have found that the more emotionally unstable we are, the more these skills actually decline. And you will find that when we are very anxious, that all of these mental functioning declines, and we have much more difficulty in it. And yet that is usually the first symptom that people see. They're like, oh, I can't focus at work anymore. I just can't solve my problems at work or in life. That's the first symptom. But I will say this, that if you are facing difficulty in these 4 areas, that you look at some of these other things that may be the more of a root cause.
Thank you, Serene. That's helpful. One of the things I wanted to mention is that US government is one of the very few federal governments or state governments in the world that has an agency that has mental health as part of its name, right? I don't know how many of you know, one of our clients within Department of Health and Human Services is an agency called Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Agency. It's called SAMHSA. They have a lot of resources available to public on mental health, behavioral health equity, a lot of interesting topics and resources. And they were actually, a couple of years ago, slammed with a lot of different calls around the country due to the opioid crisis, the drug abuse, because that's another agency within the US federal government called NIDA, National Institute Against Drug Abuse, right? So there's a lot of resources available. I just wanted to point out there before I talk about the next item. So Serene, with your experience and with your clients, and, with all the research that you've done, what are some of the, let's talk about, I'm at a workplace. What are some of the flags or triggers I should watch for that would affect my mental health?
So to add on to what you've said about resources, I've put the website into the chat group. It's medlineplus.gov, and that is the National Institute of Health's primary information website. Please go and have a look at it. It has a lot of resources, not just for mental, but also for physical health. Now, when it comes to work, let me put it this way, okay? I'm going to separate it into two separate categories. So one is for yourself, and the other one is for those who report to you. For yourself, okay. The first one that I have sort of highlighted to you, which is losing control of your emotion. Feeling extreme, anger. We call this rage. Rage is anything that number 7 or above out of a scale of 0 to 10. 0 means no anger, 10 means like maxed out. And if you experience that more than 2 to 3 times a week, that is something to watch for. Not just rage, any kind of emotion. If you are finding yourself uncontrollably crying, you are so anxious, you're unable to sleep, all different kinds of emotion. If you find that you're losing control 2 to 3 times a week, then that is one of a really big warning, a really big indicator of that. Now, the second thing is, as I mentioned right at the end, those functioning of your mind, right? So an ability to solve problems, make decisions, focus, retain memory. I can't remember what's happening, and I'm missing all my appointments because I cannot remember. I can't even remember to check my schedule and so forth. So that is another big indicator that we may be facing a mental health issue. The third is exhaustion. Now, when I say exhaustion, people tell me this, right? Like, Serene, I cannot remember the last time I woke up from bed refreshed. I'm tired all the time. And that links to this perpetual lack of sleep that a lot of us have. This need, people tell me this as if it's a matter of fact, right? Oh, I don't feel awake until I've had a coffee. I don't feel awake. I don't feel human until I've had a coffee, even worse. But if you feel unusually exhausted, you really are tired all the time. If you are, even more self-aware, and you can even tell that you are mentally exhausted, as in, it's not as though I've done a lot of physical work, but when I think about the work ahead or the work day ahead, I go like, oh, I'm tired already, right? I'm tired already thinking about it. Now, that is a third really good indicator that something is wrong. An exhaustion, and almost an overwhelming ability, a feeling that you are unable to cope with what life is demanding of you at this point in time. And the last one that I would share is if you are having unusual behavioral or lifestyle changes. For instance, if you are suddenly sleeping a lot or suddenly not sleeping, if you are suddenly over-consuming food to a very great extent, or conversely, suddenly you have lost your appetite and you can't eat anything. If you are suddenly taking a lot of alcohol, cigarettes, or other kinds of recreational drugs, if you are suddenly behaving in a way that is very unusual for you. So for instance, let's say cruising bars that you never used to do. These are all warning signs that we aren't able to cope anymore. Okay, so the 4, I'll just repeat, is losing control of your emotions, inability of your mind to function, this feeling of exhaustion or perhaps of overwhelm. And the last one is where your behavioral or your lifestyle is showing significant changes, different from what you used to be. And if you face any of these, I will be blunt and say, see a mental health professional as soon as possible. See somebody that you trust, go and talk to them. And that could be something that is very, very helpful in changing that state that you are in.
Yeah.
Now the second, no, I was going to say the second half, right? What do you do if it's not me, but it's somebody who reports to me? How do I know they are having a problem? And I often tell managers this, which is watch for a couple of very, very telltale signs. Number one, that they are staying late in the office for a very unreasonable amount of time. So if you're receiving emails at 1 a.m., if you find that your people are persistently knocking off at like 10 p.m. or a very unusual time, that's one of the biggest signs. Not what's the biggest, that's one of the most prevalent signs, most common signs, and usually the first thing that turns up. Beyond that, you get to a point where they are missing deadlines, they are unable to turn in their work, and that's the second kind of more or less the second stage. And beyond that, you get to a point where they are unable to function at all. You talk to them and you don't even get the feeling that you are getting across to them. They don't seem to know what's happening anymore. They don't seem to know, that they are not even doing what they're supposed to do. So that is then the third stage.
Okay, wonderful. So I think one of the sayings that a problem well defined is half solved, right? Meaning if you can articulate a problem very well, you already solved it 50%. So in this case, I think if I can take away from what you said is, it comes down to one word, I believe, awareness, right? Are you aware of your own actions or your own emotional states when you're at work? And are you able to look for any signs or flags from emotional states of other people around you, whether it's from their own or based on your action, they are reacting in a certain way, right? So the awareness is key, I believe, in identifying some of the issues or flags at workplace to see the issues that might affect mental health, right? So going back one step, you probably touched upon it a little bit, but part of mental health also is dependent on your physical health, right? What are some of the things that you could do physically, I guess, your behavioral part of it that can actually help your mental health? I can think of certain things which are obvious, like not looking at your phone in the bed trying to fall asleep, or watching TV, certain things that affect your sleep that eventually affects your mental health or composure or whatever, right? So do you have any pointers for, I guess, the tips that you mentioned at the beginning of the discussion to help ourselves, right, without going to a specialist? There are certain things that we can do to help ourselves. What are those? If you can talk about those.
Sure. I'll just share. This is something that I've prepared for you, and I will be sending it out into the chat later on. Basically it's a burnout recovery checklist. So if you are facing any of these of the 4 symptoms that I mentioned earlier on, these are some of the things that you can do. Now, the first thing that you can do is to check your physical health. There are a lot of things that happen. So for instance, right, you may be hypothyroid, and that causes an unusual amount of anxiety. Your blood sugar may have fallen, that causes an amount of mental and emotional exhaustion. Poor posture can cause pain, and as a result of that also, exhaustion, inability to cope. So a lot of these things can be related to your physical health. So check your physical health first. Check and make sure that nothing is going wrong, right? Go for a health check if you've never gone for a health check in the last 2 years, because quite obviously your medical systems may be overwhelmed. Well, maybe now is a good time to go and check it out. Go for a health check. The second one is what we are saying, right? Basically sleep. Now you may be looking at it going, hey, Serene, it says 7 in the paper. And you said 5 to 6 just now. Well, 7 is ideal. 7 is ideal. Get 7 hours of good sleep. What do we mean by good sleep? Good sleep means you do not get up in the night, you are not snoring, and you are not kicking and thrashing in your sleep. That's what it means, good sleep. Now, if you want to go beyond that, you can wear a watch. A lot of these smart watches will track the brainwave functions of your brain and tell you how much of that sleep is spent in, for example, dreams, how much of it is in deep sleep, and so forth, right? Thirdly is physical activity. Now, I am not advocating, especially if you are already exhausted or, burnt out, to go to the gym. Please don't. Okay. What I'm advocating is really light, enjoyable movement of your body. So maybe going for a walk at a nearby park or even nature reserve, if you happen to be lucky enough to live near one, going for a 10-minute walk a day around the block, just basically moving your body in a way that is light, enjoyable, and not stressful. Okay, right? It should not be yet another thing to stress the body out. Okay? Try just to go for a short period of time, try to sort of underachieve in a way. Next is diet. Okay, we know what to eat to help ourselves. Most of us do. We know that fast food is bad for us. We know that eating fruits and vegetables is good for us. But oftentimes when we are under stress, we pick high sugar, high fat food because those foods have, they are related to the sedation, for example, sugar. So sugar sedates. They are related to comfort. Perhaps when we are young and when we are unhappy, we will get an ice cream. So there's a lot of connotations and physical and emotional connections between poor food and our emotional state. What I am suggesting is very simple, right? Which is try to take foods that are not stressful for you, right? I'm not saying that we must, start eating salads all day or something, but try to think about what would be simple and comforting for me to eat without it being stressful to my body. So I obviously come from a very Asian family, and what do I take when I'm under a lot of stress? I'll be very blunt and tell you, I take porridge or double boiled soup. Why? Because those are the memories of my childhood, of my mom, when I'm unwell, giving me either porridge, congee, or soup, that she has boiled herself. So think about is there something similar that I can take that isn't stressful for me? And if nothing else, it's totally fine to take, for example, just some fruits, take some light carbs. That's totally fine. Then the next one is mindfulness or meditation. Now, meditation has some religious connotations. So if you prefer, you can do just do mindfulness. And what is mindfulness? It's literally giving your mind a break, right? So for a couple of minutes a day, just focus your mind on one thing. It can be anything. Usually we say breathing because quite obviously we have to breathe, but it can be literally anything, right? Some people find it useful to just focus on one sound. And you find that, that's really difficult for me. I try to focus and like within 2 seconds, my mind goes somewhere else. Then you can get something called a binaural beat. It can, an app, some of it are on wearables, and that actually helps tune your brain waves and get us out of that fight or flight, which is the beta state of your mind, and get us into a calmer state of mind just by listening to that music. Now, the thing I want to say is this right at the bottom, which is a very important note. Don't do all of this at the same time. When we are burnt out, just do one. Just do one. Just pick one thing. And if you're like, I'm so tired, I have no idea what I want to pick sleep. Just pick sleep. Because sleep is the easiest. Sleep is something we do every night. I know physical, check your physical health is number one, but the whole thought of going for a checkup may be stressful by itself. So yeah, just pick sleep, right? Sleep in a little bit more, schedule a little bit more time to go to sleep early. Just sleep. And if 2 or 3 nights of really good sleep is not helping your problem, then you need to perhaps look at some of the others.
Thank you, Serene. That's very helpful. You touched upon something before as an individual or as a manager, how do you identify and cope with some of this? Let's take, I guess, one step further, right? If you are a business owner, which I believe most of the chamber members are, right? What are some of the things that you could do? I mean, for example, in our organization, we are looking at mental health day or mental health time. People have, a few hours a month or whatever to kind of take a break and just, I guess, wind down or relax or whatever, right? So what are some of the best practices that you're seeing from employers, large and small, that can, proactively incorporate mental health of their employees, which in turn the mental health of the organization, into their planning and HR and all those aspects?
Sure. I think I think right now I would literally consider this to be a must-do, is schedule time every week to catch up with your team members on non-work related matters. This is even more important if you're all still working from home. So schedule time, an hour, an hour and a half if you can afford it, but just schedule a period of time sometime during the work week, and just say, look, we're just going to come and we're just going to chat about our lives or about what's happening with us, and just catch up. And this is something that would have happened organically in the office. People will walk in and maybe they will take a look at you and go, Balaji, what's wrong? You don't look so well, right? But right now we are having back-to-back Zoom calls, and we get on Zoom, we deal with the work, we get off Zoom, we go on to the next one. And that's not working out for people anymore. And so we do need this connect. We do need to reconnect. So disconnect from work, reconnect with each other as people and as a community, a work community. It doesn't have to be like, confess to me, what are you mentally healthy or whatever. It can just be a simple catch up of what's happened in the last week, what's happened in your lives. And just hear how people's lives are like. It could be, my son's entire class was, half of them has been diagnosed with COVID. My son is unvaccinated. I don't know what to do. It can be anything. And that ability to talk about something else and connect to people will be very, very vital in keeping people mentally healthy, because that is the social support network that many don't have. And in allowing you as the leader, as the business owner, to know what are the lives of your people. And the second step then is, if you find that, hey, I've been on the call and this person says, oh yeah, I'm okay. But when I look at her, she doesn't seem quite right. Then you might want to schedule a separate time to literally sit down and talk to him or her and go like, hey, are you really okay? Are you really all right? Now, quite obviously, the truthfulness of that answer depends on my relationship with that staff member. It also depends on how safe the office environment feels. So if the organization, there's been a lot of talk recently about psychological safety. Do I feel safe enough in my workplace to say the truth, to say that I can't cope anymore? Things are not working out well with me anymore. And that may have totally nothing to do with work. It could be that, I have 3 family members in the hospital, ICU at the moment, recovering from COVID, and I can't cope with my work right now. I won't be able to cope for the next 3 weeks. Right? So those are the reality you need to find out and you need to know. And yes, it may mean having to reassign work. It may mean going to the team and going like, hey, we have one team member who has a real problem, a serious problem at home. Is there anyone else who can help? And having those real conversations, I think, is important right now. And I believe people will. I've seen this last 2 years, people do heroic efforts, honestly, to keep work going in the midst of really disruptive change. I think people have the capacity, and I think people will pull together. And it's you as the owner going, hey, we are having an issue. or one of our team members having issue, what can we do? And the third one is, I mean, a lot of this trust and honesty starts from us. And it may even start from as simple as going, I don't know what's coming up in the next 6 months, right? Business has been poor. I really don't know, what is going to happen this 6 months. Why don't we sit down and look at it as a team? And rather than thinking that I'm the business owner, I should solve all the business problems, I should have all the answers. COVID has taught us we don't have the answers. None of us have the answers, right? And sitting down and being honest with our team member can sometimes be the biggest gift that we can give them, right? Just go, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's happening right now. And let's put our heads together and see where we are at.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing that you said is, I believe everybody on this call can appreciate. It's a new terminology called Zoom fatigue, right? People are going from, I'm pretty sure many of us have another call to dial into at 1 o'clock, 4 minutes from now, right? So one thing that we are trying to do is to max like 50 to 55 minutes, at least give 5 minutes break to people to stretch and go get a glass of water or whatever. So you're not sitting in your chair for like 4 hours straight and dialing from one call to the other, to the other, to the other, right? So that's not certainly helpful. So speaking of which, we are up to 4 minutes mark. I want to open it up to the attendees to see anybody has any questions, comments, or thoughts. Hope you all found this session useful. If there aren't any questions, back to you, Cindy, but I will tell you this, Serene, speaking of all the discussion points, hope you go to bed and don't wake up before 9 o'clock, because it's already 2 o'clock for you.
Yes.
7 hours of sleep.
Yes, I've just put the recovery checklist into the chat box, so do download it. I mean, you're welcome to share this with your friends. Please do contact me. My email is in it. You can contact me if you have more questions on it.
I think Peter has
yes.
something
Oh,
to say.
Peter has something to say. Yes, Peter. Hi.
I've got a question. I've got a Zoom meeting in 3 minutes, so I want to get get my 2 cents worth in here. First, if you can figure out how I can get 7 hours of sleep, I take my hat off to you. That's number one. And then number two, I think what you said here really makes a lot of sense. Even in my case, as a lawyer and professional service provider, there's only so much you can do digitally on the screen. I get beaten up every single day by SEO people, by people that want to upgrade my website, do whatever. But, to me, that's really background noise. What is really important is for people to connect with others. And what I found, with the last 2.5, 3 years or whatever of very little contact, I'm anxious to meet people. Just as you say, I want to know how other people are doing. And then what I found, all of my problems are the same problems that everybody else has, whether it be in work or business or even on a personal level. I'm frustrated. I want to go out for a walk. I'm tired or whatever. And so I think, particularly, as a Chinese person, there's a reason for thousands of years people live in communal living, because we are meant to be with others, to share with them all of our thinking. And I think you touch upon, connecting with people is the number one reason that, I'm in San Diego right now, going to conferences. Although I have to say in California, nobody knows how to spell COVID. All the masks are off. But anyway, that's a different story. Thank you for my 2 cents and very much enjoyed it. I apologize I joined late, but thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much, Peter. I have good news for you. One of the advantages as we get older is we need less sleep. So at your age, you only need 5 to 6. You don't need 7. So that's one of the advantages of getting older.
Thank you. I got to go, but thank you again.
See ya. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming.
All right. Anybody else has anything? Otherwise, Cindy, back to you to close this out.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I know first session, planning session, it took around 1 hour. second around half an hour. And the third, Balaji and Sri already have perfect like synchronization. So it only took 10 minutes for the planning session. This is a phenomenal work. And thank you, Balaji, for moderating the session. So awesome. And Serene, we also benefit so much from your wealth of knowledge. And thank you so much for spending time with us and share all those insights. I want to just maybe take 1 minute to share what to, okay, this is a little weird. Okay. So just want to share a few upcoming events. Can you see my screen? So this is actually a Women History Month. We're hosting this special session, and we will feature a woman executive panel. Be sure to check the website for details. Also, this month, we're featuring many women members in the chamber. On our social media channel, you can see different postings about member videos. We just want to pay our tribute to our dear women members in the chamber during this March Women History Month. This is another event coming up in Tysons, Virginia. We invited many of the members to showcase different brands, dress, and it's a fun event and nice to engage with many members. April, we're actually moving our leaders, Lunch with the Leaders series to Loudoun County. This is the signature event. We're so excited about this. We're featuring Super 40 Awards program. It's a brand new program this year. We'll have so many accomplished Asian business owners in the region together with us. So do put it on your calendar and plan to join us. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I want to just acknowledge our board member, Peggy, and Stephanie Shea here with us too, and Karen Small from Fairfax County Economic Development Authority. And thank you everyone for being with us today. And now everyone got trained, and you can become an ambassador and share the information with your network. And hope everyone have a super nice day. Thank you so much. Bye.